Hello! Welcome back to another My Porch Prints video tutorial. My name's Kaelyn, and today we're going to be putting together this lovely beginner-style junk journal using our pumpkin spice papers and pages and our pumpkin spice ephemera kit. I hope this will be helpful if you're just starting out, so go ahead and follow along. So to begin, I've gone ahead and printed out our pumpkin spice papers and pages. For the pages, I printed these ones at 80% size, and then I printed the blank and lined pages at 85% size. And I did this so that I can layer things up. You can see kind of how that's gonna look. And then on these pages here, I went ahead and off camera burnt the edges around each of these pages. A little bit of advice on that, just make sure that you're always being extra safe and careful anytime you're working with fire and crafting. So for me, I do mine over the sink. I fill the sink with water, and then I also wet some paper towels. And I go ahead and use a lighter to light one edge and let it burn just a little bit. And then I blow it out or shake it out and tap it with the paper towel. And then turn it and repeat and do that again and again. And that way you just eliminate as much risk as you can. So if you do that, make sure that you're careful. You can also achieve a similar look by tearing the edge of your paper and then inking it using distress ink. And we'll have links for some of the supplies that we use down below. So that is kind of these parts here. I'm gonna move these aside. And then for my papers, these were printed at normal, regular full size. And I went ahead and ran them through double-sided, so printed on them and then flipped them over, ran them through the printer again. And I'm gonna be using a corner rounding punch to round my corners. I have mine set on medium. So we'll go ahead and round these edges. And this is printed on paper, and then these were printed on cardstock. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Okay, so that gives a nice rounded edge. I'm gonna do that to all of my papers, and then I'm also gonna be going around the edge with distress ink, just like this, to kind of give it a bit of an antique look. And then what I'm hoping is that I can layer these up. So we'll have one that's distressed on the edge like this, and then I can layer one of these blank or lined pages, and then over the top layer another page, and it kind of gives a cool layered look. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and ink all of my edges and round the corners, and then we can start assembling. All right, so I went ahead and rounded my corners here and inked all of my edges for my papers. And then as I was looking at this, I wanted just a couple more papers included. So I'm substituting with some coffee dyed papers. We have a listing that we'll link down below for coffee dyed papers. But when I went to stagger them, I realized that the coffee dyed papers are a little bit bigger than these papers because they come with a border. I'll show one here. Our printer does not print borderless. And so there's a little bit of an edge around each paper. So if your printer prints that way as well, then you'll want to trim your coffee dyed papers to match the same size, which I've done with this one here. All right, for binding our journal, I've gone ahead and printed out more of the printable papers. These I just printed one-sided because we're going to be gluing these down. And we're going to be using the hinge binding method. So here we actually did a previous journal using our shabby Victorian scrap pack, and you can see the hinge method was used in here. Here you can see it, where we use strips of paper to bind our papers together to make our journal. So we're going to be doing something similar like that today. If you want to see this journal made, we have a different video on YouTube, and you can see how it was done there as well. So for mine, I'm going to be measuring about 3-inch strips off the edge of my papers. So down here, see we've got our 3-inch mark. And it doesn't have to be perfect, we're just kind of approximating, but that's kind of the size I'm going for. And I'm gonna cut, I'm gonna start with 2 from each sheet, and if I need more, I can go in and cut more. All right, so now I have my 3-inch strips, and I wanted to add a decorative edge on mine. So here we have this little punch. Again, if you're looking for similar items, we have an Amazon shop, and the link for that is down below. So I'm going to start by kind of putting my page right in the middle. This first punch you kind of have to just eyeball. All right, and so we'll bring this up here so you can see it. So we've got a little bit of an edge started, and we're going to want to be lining that up with this right here. I'll do my best to see if I can show you that. All right, so to keep everything lined up, you want to make sure that this edge is lined up here and that this matches up with the pattern beneath. I hope you can kind of see that. And then we'll punch again. Okay, and that keeps the edge going. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. It's a little tedious, but I'm gonna do that to all of my strips here, and then we should be ready to move along. All right, so now I have all of my beautiful kind of lacy edged hinge pieces here. And again, you can always make things as simple or as complex as you want. And so I like having the lacy edge on there. I think it's gonna look really nice. But it's totally fine to just cut them into strips and glue the hinges together. It'll work the exact same way. So here I have all of my papers. I kind of staggered my printed papers and my coffee dyed papers. And so I'm gonna go ahead and be folding those in half. I recommend that you fold pieces individually. If you take your whole journal, for example, even though I'm doing a very small, thin journal, if you fold them all together, things can you can see how they're like spreading here and they get sort of off. Whereas if you fold them one at a time, it does take a little bit longer, but it just ensures that your pages line up better. So I'm going to show you how I do that here. And we'll do this first one together. So I've got one, I'm gonna fold this one. And then to connect these two pieces, I'm gonna move my stack out of the way. We're gonna turn them kind of back to back here so that they're lining up like this. So inside we have our fold. All right, and then the two edges are lined up together. And then this hinge is going to go right in the middle to connect them. So I'm going to add some glue on the back. And don't be shy with the glue. We want this to be as sturdy as we can make it. There are other methods that are probably more sturdy, like a pamphlet stitch. So if you're looking for something that's going to hold a lot of ephemera that you need to be a little more heavy duty, that might be a better method. But if you're making something small with lighter ephemera, this actually works really well. Okay. So I've got these lined up. I'm going to add my hinge piece on there. Smooth it down. If you want to use a bone folder, that can help. All right, and then once that seems pretty secure, we're just gonna fold that over to crease it. All right, and then those two pieces are connected, and we're just gonna do that with all the other papers to create our journal. All right, I'm kind of reaching the end here. So I'm gonna be adding my last hinge piece on. And for anyone wondering, this journal, I used 6 sheets of printable papers that I printed on front and back. And then I alternated with 5 sheets of coffee dyed paper and then used 10 of these strips or hinges if you're trying to make something really similar to what I'm doing. So fold it in half with each of these sheets, that creates 22 pages. I also want to mention with this hinge method, I am probably the most novice of the 3 of us. Stephanie and Kyra have a lot more experience than I do. And this hinge method works really well if you're someone that's kind of intimidated by binding. Again, it may not work for really big journals with lots of ephemera or heavy pieces in it, but if you're somebody that wants to start crafting, this would be a great way to start with binding because it's really not very difficult at all. Okay. So last piece here, I kind of try and line up the edge. And then especially as it's gotten bigger, I've really used this bone folder to help kind of crease things down and keep stuff where it's supposed to be. So now we've got kind of our base of our journal. And you can kind of see some of these want to stick. So as you're assembling your journal periodically, you may just want to go back through and check and make sure none of the glue has seeped through these lacy edges if you punched your edges. But you can kind of see how that's gonna look. All right, I'm moving on to the cover of my journal, and I'm gonna be keeping this pretty simple. So I just have one of those lined pages. Again, this was printed at 85% size, so it's a little bit smaller than the rest of my journal here. And then here we have a Leaf Shapes freebie that was designed to match our Autumn Whimsy collection, but it's also going to match really nicely with this kit as well. So if you're looking for that, we'll have that linked down below. And I'm going to just pick one of the leaves. I kind of like this orange one here. And I'm going to be doing sort of a patchwork thing. I wanted to originally do like a patchwork quilt cover, but I'm wanting to keep this a little bit more of a beginner's journal and keep it a little more simple. So we're going to do kind of a like simplified patchwork cover. And so for that, I just have a little bit of lace. I'm going to cut a little square here. It's okay if there's extra. And then I also have some of this like script printed fabric. Same thing. Cut a square of that. And I'm going to glue these down kind of opposite each other so you get sort of a little patchwork look. So I'm gonna let this dry for a moment, and then I'm gonna be sewing around this as well. I'm not much of a sewer, so again, I'm trying to keep this pretty simple, but I'm gonna be sewing around the shape of the leaf, and then also along each of these edges where the fabric is, to give it that patchwork look. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then we can cut this out and add it to our journal here. Alright, so I have all of the components for my cover here. And again, I did a very simple kind of patchwork looking leaf. If you're somebody who's really skilled with the sewing machine, maybe you could do something like a plush fabric cover or something like that. But if you're more beginner level, then this could be something that's an easy way to achieve a similar look. So I got my leaf here, my little background paper, and I did just a zigzag stitch on the edge of this, the same with the center of my leaf. And then on the edge of my leaf, I did a line stitch, or a straight stitch. And then here I have a stencil. We'll have a link to our Amazon shop down below, where you can find similar stencils. And I've got some gold and brown ink here. So I'm gonna go over first with my gold. And I don't think I'm gonna cover the whole page. I'm gonna kind of go in some little like sections. And I'm gonna lift this stencil up, and you can see that if I just do gold, it kind of has a yellowy tone to it. And I wanna age it and make it look just a little bit more deeper. So I'm gonna go over it real lightly with a little bit of a brown ink. Alright, so if we lift this up again, hopefully, yeah, you can see that's got a little bit more of a antiqued kind of look to it. So I'll set my stencil to the side, and then we're gonna go ahead and glue this smaller page here onto my cover. And then I'll add my leaf onto the cover as well. And I'm debating, I think I may want to add a little bit of puff tape here to just make this stand out a little bit, but you could also glue it. Okay. That just makes it stand up off the page just a little bit. So that's it for the cover. We're keeping it really simple. And then I'm going to begin decorating here soon. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you some of the ephemera pieces we're gonna be using. So to start, I have a couple of these pumpkin spice hidden paper clips. And this is a separate listing that we sell in our Etsy shop. If you wanna go ahead and take a look at those, we'll link those down below. These are super cute. We've already assembled these, so link for that will be down below. I also want to point out a couple of the pieces of ephemera I've assembled a little bit differently than how they're designed to be assembled. So these like note card pages, for example, are typically stapled together like a little notepad. I ended up doing mine just double-sided, folding them and gluing them to make like a little pocket. So just as a reminder, when you're crafting, you can always kind of take your own spin on things and make it your own. And then the rest of the ephemera is pretty standard. I'm just using a couple of different pieces that come with the kit. I've assembled like our little window card already, and a couple of other pieces. And I made sure to ink around the edges of mine again to just give some contrast on the page, but that's not something that you have to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and begin decorating, and you can follow along with me to get some ideas. So here I've gone ahead and printed out that Leaf Shapes freebie again. I printed this out on vellum because I wanted it to have that kind of see-through look. And I'm going to cut out some of these leaves and use them throughout my journal. So if you're wondering how we achieved that look, that's just that same freebie printed on vellum paper. Thanks for taking a look at this journal with me. This was designed as a beginner style junk journal, so a lot of these concepts can be expanded upon and made more complex if you have the time and the skill to do so. But a couple of great beginner's tips that I love using are inking edges to create some dimension and add a little bit of an aged look to your journal if you like that. Also adding lace and ribbon to the edges of pages for a little bit of variety and texture. We love having movement in our journals, using some of our like waterfall tag designs. And also these petal envelopes are so fun for creating movement. And then also printing these leaves on vellum gave kind of a see-through element to your journal. These could also be used to make some really cute pockets. I like adding a little bit of light hardware to some of my journals. In this one we used a couple of corners as well as some book plates on the cover. So I hope that this will give you some good ideas if you're a beginner starting out. We also did a lot of layering of different papers. You can see we've got our background page here, our little hinge, paper layered over that and ribbon, and then a couple of pieces of ephemera layered over that. But I hope that these will give you some ideas as you're starting on your crafting journey. And we'll see you in our next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.